Good morning, everyone. My name is Francis Dominic Astilla. I am the second presenter of Group 5. I will continue the topic about Europe in the Western Hemisphere since 1945. First, Latin America since 1945. Latin American countries, the Great Depression of the 1930s had created political instability that led to military coups and militarist regimes. In Latin America, in the mid-20th century, Latin America countries shifted from heavy reliance on exporting raw materials to developing their own industry due to Great Depression impact on export. However, their dependency on advanced technology from industrialized nations hindered their ability to compete globally, and military regimes emerged to maintain amid economic struggle, accumulating significant foreign debts by the 1970s, leading to an economic crisis in 1980s. This crisis prompted movements toward democracy, resulting in the establishment of democratic regimes across most of Latin America by the 1990s. Next is the threat of Marxist revolution, the example of Cuba. Marxism played a little role in the politics of Latin America, the success of Fidel Castro in Cuban Revolution, exposal of Marxism. The threat of Marxism revolution, in the 1960s, Marxism had limited influence in Latin American country politics until the success of Fidel Castro Cuban Revolution. Castro, along with Ernesto Guevara, led a guerrilla movements against the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista, which was economically tied to U.S. investors. Batista regime's brutality led to his downfall in 1958, and Castro revolutionized his power in Cuba on January 1, 1959. Relationship between Cuba and the U.S. soared as Cuba turned to the Soviet Union for support. Next is the national and the military, the example of Argentina. The military became the power brokers of 20th century Latin America. In the 20th century, the military wielded significant influence in Latin America, particularly during the 1960s and 1970s, representing themselves as the guardian of national honor and progress. In Argentina, Juan Perón emerged a prominent figure, initially rising with a military regime in 1943. However, Perón, favored by workers, was eventually elected president in 1946 after an uprising. Next is the Mexican Way. During the 1950 and 60 Mexican ruling party, the Institutional Revolutionary Party or PRI. During the 1950 and 60, Mexico pursued a balanced industrial program, resulting in the 15 years of steady economic growth, low inflation, and rising wages. However, in the late 1960s, the one-party dominance of Mexico became evident with the emergence of student protests, and notably the tragic event in Tlatelolco Square in Mexico City in October 1968, where police forces opened fire on demonstrators, resulting in hundreds of deaths. Next is the society and culture in the Western world. First is the emergence of new society. During the first decades after World War II, products of technological as computer, television, jet planes, contraceptive devices, and new surgical techniques all dramatically altered the peace and nature of human life. The decades of following World War II saw a significant transformation in Western society, driven by new technology like computer, television, and jet planes. Alongside scientific advancement and economic growth, this era, dubbed a technocratic or consumer society, witnessed changes in social structure and movements for change. However, in Europe, the middle class expanded with the rise of managerial and technological occupation, while the agricultural and industrial sectors saw shift in workforce composition. Next is the permissive society. The permissive society was yet another label critics applied to post-war Europe. World War I and had opened the first significant crack in the rigid code of manners and morals of the 19th century. The term permissive society was used by critics to describe post-war Europe, where a significant shift in manners and moral occurred, while World War I had already begun to challenge the rigid moral codes of the 19th century. The 1920s saw further experimentation with drugs and sexual freedom, mainly in urban areas and among the minority. However, after World War II, these changes became more widespread. And notice, Sweden played a leading role in the sexual revolution of the 1960s, influencing Europe and the United States. Next is the woman post-Star World. Despite their enormous contribution to the war effort, women at the end of World War II were removed from the workforce to free up jobs for the soldiers returning home. After the World War II, despite their significant contribution to the world war effort, women were largely removed from the workforce to make way to returning soldiers. Initially, there was a return to traditional family rules, leading to a decline in female workforce participation and a baby boom. However, in the early 1960s, the widespread adoption of birth control, particularly oral contraceptives, led to a decline in birth rates and a shift towards smaller families. Next is the feminist movement, the quest for liberation. Women participating in the World War I and II play a significant role in achieving one of the major goals of the 19th century feminist movement, the right to vote. Many governments like Sweden, Great Britain, Germany, Poland, Hungary, Australia, and Czechoslovakia granted women suffrage after World War I, with the United States following suit in 1920s. However, in the aftermath of World War II, European women generally reverted to traditional rules and feminist concern faded, yet, by the late 1960s, women began reasserting their rights and advocating for feminism. Next is the growth of terrorism. Act of terror by individuals and groups opposed to governments have become a frightening aspect of modern Western society. The terrorism has been employed through tactics like hostage-taking and airplane hijacking to draw attention to political demands or destabilize governments. This act often receives significant media coverage, potentially serving as a catalyst for some terrorist group. However, motivation for terrorism, like left and right-wing ideologies and nationalist aspiration for separate states, exemplified by groups like IRA. Next is the terrorism attack on the United States. One of the distracted acts of terrorism occurred on September 11, 2001 in the United States. On September 11, 2001 in the United States, one of the deadliest acts of terrorism occurred. Terrorists hijacked four commercial jet airplanes departing from Boston, New York, and Washington. Two of these planes were flown directly into the Twin Tower of the World Trade Center in New York, causing their collapse along with surrounding buildings. Another plane crashed in the Pentagon near Washington, D.C., while the fourth, seemingly bound for Washington, crashed in the rural area of Pennsylvania. And next, guest workers and immigrants. A severe labor shortage forced them to rely on foreign workers. In the 1980s, Europe experienced a significant influx of guest workers, primarily from the country like Turkey, Morocco, Pakistan, contributing to an estimated total of 15 million guest workers across from the continent, while initially recruited for economic purposes. Their presence led to social and political tension in host countries, especially due to their concentration in certain cities and neighborhoods. Next is the environment and green movements. Environmentalism became a major item on the European political agenda. By the time, serious ecological problems had become all too apparent. Since the 1970s, environmentalism has gained significant traction in Europe, political due to the growing awareness of serious ecological issues. Air pollution from various sources like vehicle, power plants, and industrial factories led to respiratory illnesses and damage to buildings and monuments. Pollution of rivers, lakes, and seas, as well as the decline of forests and wildlife, raised alarm among the public. However, the environmental devastation in Eastern Europe, particularly after the Revolution of 1989, further highlighting the urgency of addressing environmentalism concern. Next is the Western culture since 1945. The Western world since World War II been notable for its diversity and innovation. Since the World War II, the Western world has experienced significant intellectual and cultural diversity and innovation. Particularly since around 1970, there has been a notice shift towards new direction and taught creativity, leading some observers to characterize this period as a post-modern cultural era. Dito na. And postmodernism, emerging prominently since the 1970s, encompasses a range of intellectual and artistic style, challenging the modern Western notion of objective truth. Post-structuralism, spearheaded by Jacques Derrida, emphasizes the relative nature of reality and acknowledge of rejecting fixed truth of favor of multiple interpretation, shaped by cultural context. However, Michael Foucault expanded on these ideas, exploring how our dynamics in relationship are going that power exercise rather than possess and permeating all societal interaction. And next is the trends in arts. The United States dominated the art world much as did it the world of popular culture. In the early 1960s, pop art emerged, transforming images from popular culture into fine art. Andy Warhol, a prominent figure in pop art, adopted commercial imagery like Campbell soap cans and legible celebrity photographs. However, blurring the lines between high and low culture, pop art elected the mass-produced nature of consumer culture, expressing the transient nature of popular trends. Next is the art and contemporary world. The tech boom of the 1980s brought a new generation of wealth to the art market, elevation artists and praises to rock star status. Since the late 1980s, artists have responded to technological advancement and globalization by embracing new medium and subject matter, often leading photography, film, sculpture, installation to explore themes of new global identity. However, the tech boom of 1990s brought unprecedented wealth to the art market, elevating artists to celebrity status. And the last one is the world of science and technological. Many of the art, scientific, and technological achievements since World War II have revolutionized people's lives. The world of science and technology since World War II, scientific and technological advancement have profoundly transformed society. During the war, university scientists were enlisted to develop new weapons and practical tools for warfare. British physics, for instance, play a pivotal role in creating a improved radar system that aid in defending the German Air Force during the Battle of Britain in 1943. However, German scientists contributed to the development of self-propelled rockets and jet planes, reflecting efforts to sustain Hitler had ambition for a turnaround in the war. The computer emerged as a crucial wartime innovation, with British mathematician Alan Turing designing a primitive computer to aid deciphering German and ciphering machine. And that's all. And thank you. And thank you for the listening. Bye.